Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses with each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Jabish Brook Conservation Area, located in Belchertown, Massachusetts. So tell us about the conservation land.
It's a big conservation land, and it's well worth hiking around it, walking around it. It's tough to park in that area. There is a parking lot that's very tiny up a dirt road that you get away from that highway, and it's maybe 4 cars can park in there. So you can do that. Now today we're going to learn also about the Jabish Brook, and then which kind of maps have been made for you to help you get around here, and then what it's like out on the trails. And I have one surprise for you on that. And so this conservation land is a joint project of Belchertown's Conservation Committee and of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Recreation Department. And they've done a fine job blazing off the trails, making it into a place to walk around. And you might even consider it that it has a lot of ability levels. So if you only go a mile in, a mile back, it's pretty easy. But you start walking uphill, make sure you have a friend with you. And I do like this area quite a bit. There is a lot of noise off of Route 9, but it's pretty nice.
Can you tell us about Jabish Brook?
The Jabish Brook itself is actually a very, very strong stream coming out of it. Most of it's narrow enough, but fast. And that's because there's a lot of downhills through the northern parts of the community of Belchertown. So the Jabish Brook is fast. And there's a lot of bridges over the hiking trails inside of there, so you'll get out into these trails very well. There's actually a former Boy Scout camp out there. Now the brook has a few waterfalls, and they're easy to find here. Most of them are very small, of course. And also the Jabish Brook is very long. So it goes through most of Belchertown, and it flows into the Swift River, which is a fairly large river. It's the river that feeds into the top of Quabbin. It's the river that feeds out the bottom of the Quabbin. It's the one that was dammed up to make the Quabbin. So the Jabish Brook feeds into the Swift River. The Jabish Brook feeds into a canal. And in that canal, the Jabish Canal feeds into the Broad Brook Canal, and these canals feed into the Springfield Reservoir, which is in Ludlow. And so this is a very great connection, and most people are surprised how fast the Jabish Brook is. It really roars at times, but at other times it levels off and gets small and fairly narrow, but it keeps flowing, so it almost never does have a dry season around this area.
And quickly, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, for more information or to sign up for any various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, which organization has the best map available of the Jabish Brook?
I like the Kestrel Land Trust map the best, and you can zoom in on it in quite a few places. It brings you out to a lot of features and tells you what features you're looking at. Like it tells you about a large stone which is a glacial erratic. At one point, it tells you where the bridges are and where the brook is. It tells you where the former Boy Scout camp is, and it gives you an idea of where the hills are, where there's a trail of beautiful mountain laurel flowers, for instance, and a lot of these things I have visited myself. And so thus, their map is the best, probably better than the state maps. At some point, in a few years, I'll make my own and help you guide you along. And maybe even hope to have a tour out here someday. And I'll show you not only the features of typical and teach you about the geology and geography about the brook and land, but also show you a very important feature.
And can you describe to us what a walk around the conservation would be like and any significant features?
Okay, I think around the whole map that these trails on, I probably measured, I think it was 2.2 miles around the whole entire thing. It might be a little bit more, depending on how you measure it and where you start. All right, and also make sure you bring that trail map with you or have a cell phone. And what's it like? It's quite beautiful because you got these gorgeous brook with bridges over them. You got this nice trail which curves a lot and it goes up and down a lot, usually very gradually. Has that mountain laurel space and has at times nicer features, different trees at all points. And it makes it for a very unique conservation area. And I'm glad that Belchertown in the state has put effort into making it. And they actually have a second phase coming up. And they have a sign up telling you the second phase will come towards the south of this first area to make it even larger. And that'll be incredible because the Jabish Brook deserves it. It's such a brook that changes constantly through its length and constantly in terms of the way the brook looks, the way that the trees look alongside it, and the terrain is alongside it. And now, the special thing is that if you walk about a mile on the north edge of that loop trail, in the woods, about a mile out, maybe 200 yards into the woods, there's a former cemetery called the Kimball Cemetery. And there used to be 10 burials there. 9 of the burials seem to have been moved from the Kimball Cemetery, but one of the burials has been left behind. A 10-year-old boy has been left behind with his gravestone still in place. And the cemetery has iron rail around it, and I want to go out there and take pictures for you and draw a map up for you someday. I haven't done that quite yet, but you'll know on my page if the map shows up and pictures show up that I've got out there, and I'll try to have a description to help you guide out there. Imagine the mystery of having a cemetery out in the landscape where very few people ever gone. And this mystery of why they've left a boy out there when they moved the other 9 burials. Strange.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of other podcasts on his website as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you and hope you join us again.